I'm here to talk to you today about a buyer's life.
And for me, that was an 18-year life with John Lewis. So hopefully that you'll see I've got some qualifications to be standing here talking to you about these subjects. But actually, as a wider team, we have quite a lot of experience to be talking to you about these subjects. So along with my colleagues Anna, Elaine and Neil, we all left John Lewis back in November last year and are in the early stages of setting up Retail100 Consulting. We chose the name Retail100 because between the four of us we have exactly 100 years of retail experience. So I'll leave it to your imagination to allocate years to each of us depending on how good the black and white photography is. But hopefully that gives you some reassurance that what I'm going to talk to you about today comes from a real place of a lot of learnt knowledge, a lot of learnt experience, and actually having lived this as three buyers and one merchandiser. Don't ever forget your merchandiser, always an important part of the team. We've learnt a lot, we've been there, and hopefully what I say today is going to help you if you choose for that to be your journey, or as a supplier, you're trying to deal with someone in a buying and merchandising team. So where to start? It's very obvious that there isn't actually a very specific way to get into a buying and merchandising career. So my personal experience was I did a BA in textile design in Birmingham, actually, so very close to here. Came to the end of my degree, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, knew I didn't want to do design full-time. It's quite a hard area to get into. And one of my tutors suggested looking into buying because I was also quite an academic person, or quite analytical, and kind of fell into it, in all honesty. Applied for a few jobs and was lucky enough to get a role at John Lewis at the entry level. But these days there are actually a lot of buying-specific degrees. They tend to be more fashion-centric, if I'm honest, but all the skills you would learn would be relevant to coming into the buying industry. And a lot of the big universities now do placement years with a lot of big retailers, which would offer some really good experience to someone looking to head into that field. But a degree is not essential, and a relevant degree either is not essential. So I have colleagues I've worked with who've done degrees in history, in English, lots of other things, and I've worked with many people who didn't do a degree at all, so really not essential. And then obviously people will have heard of LinkedIn. I think this marks for a kind of overpiece around networking. So if you're looking to get into the industry, working out who are the people that you'd be interested in working with, who you'd want to speak to, and connecting to them is really important. You'll find a lot of people have a lot more time for talking and chatting about what they do than you think. You know, you can but ask. The worst is someone's going to say no. But a lot of people will spend time chatting to people about what it's like to work in buying and how to get into a career. One really great thing to do is work experience. So again, not always that easy to get, but a lot of our colleagues that worked in John Lewis shops were really well placed to get work experience within the buying team. So actually, if you're working in retail at the coalface, it's a great opportunity to try and network within your business and find out about the different functions whilst you're doing that. And then finally, not forgetting kind of the jobs websites that most retailers will have, and a lot of retailers now will talk about buying and merchandising roles on their websites. They'll have videos and things that kind of give you real information about what those roles are. I think merchandising in particular is very misunderstood, and sadly many times people think they're applying for a visual merchandising role, and they're probably the most different things that you can find between visual merchandising and an actual proper merchandising role. So spending time to do the research is really key. And just fundamentally really understanding whether it's going to be a career you'll love. If you can think about the moment where a parcel arrives in the office, if you wouldn't be excited about opening that parcel and finding out what samples are in it, possibly not the career for you, because at a basic level, that's what you need to be really interested in, that moment of what have we got coming in, has it worked, does it look great? If you can't get excited about that, then it's probably not the place for you. And then in terms of when you get there and how it goes, you can't underestimate the power of people. So these are all super pictures of some of the superhumans that we've worked with over the years. And the importance of having a great team cannot be underestimated, especially when we all used to work in an office. I used to spend more time with these people than I've ever done with my family, and actually probably got along a lot better with some of these people than I do with some of my family. But really building the right team is really key to success. So really understanding people and how they're going to work together, but also thinking about when dealing with, actually it might not be the right role for them, and dealing with underperformance. You don't have to be really tough and really harsh. It's more about helping that person find the right path for them. So actually, within retail, there are so many options, and quite a lot of the times, it's just a redirection. Someone's ended up in a buying team and then realised opening all the boxes is definitely not for them, and can easily find a new path through lots of different other functions. But I think it's always been important for us to celebrate the power of people within our teams, and really about how much they achieve together. And you might often hear it talked about the buyer of so-and-so and the merchandiser of so-and-so. They're never one person. There'll always be a big team behind them. Which leads me on to my next point, which is kind of calling out the fact that hierarchies really don't exist anymore. So when I started at John Lewis 18 years ago, the first buyer I met was Mr. McFarlane. Didn't know his first name. I was told to call him Mr. McFarlane. We've changed massively. Back then, buyers sat in an office and the rest of the team sat outside, and you had to go and knock on their door to get in. Buying and merchandising teams now operate in much flatter structures. So if you're obsessing about you must talk to the buyer and you're kind of everything you're doing is aimed at the buyer, you'll be really missing a trick and probably alienating a lot of people in a team who are really critical to making your product a success. So it's really key to think about when interacting with a retailer, who is in that team and who's going to be really important. So obviously, the buyer is there and will often have the final say, but often there are many assistant buyers, buying assistants, and similar on the merchandising side, who are running the day-to-day operation of the team, and quite often will be having their own delegated areas to buy. So if they're the ones talking to you, they're the ones you need to talk to. It'd be great, to have conversations with the buyer, but they are there doing the work. And actually really key is if you alienate them, you'll find it's a real struggle to get your product launched or your orders placed, because quite often it's human nature. If someone's annoying you or doesn't give you any attention, you do the same back to them. So really understanding the importance of who you're working with and what they can do for you is really critical, especially in the bigger retailers. There'll be big teams, and the people that kind of maybe came and picked you up and got you a coffee, they're probably the ones that will get the most done for you if you give them the time and attention. And for a lot of us, we've worked our way up, so it's again another sort of famous saying that be kind to the people on the way up, because sometimes they're going to be your buyers of the future. And if they remember how you were kind to them or you took the time to have a conversation with them while they were bringing you up in the lift, they'll remember that. And when they come to be the buyer that you need to get in with, they'll appreciate that you spent the time talking to them and interacting with them. And then this slide became full of pictures, so kind of called it Know Your Trade. So, of course, when you move on to a product area, you've really got to understand that category. But for me, knowing your trade is around the amount of impartial resource that exists in lots of industries, be it from associations to publications to websites to trade shows, that really can support you. People that run these are an absolute wealth of knowledge. They will know everybody and anybody, and they'll know everything that you need to know. So pulling out kind of publications, the guys at Max and Lima within the gift trade are just super. They've been around doing it for a long time. The publications have a lot of information in them, but they're always looking for great new stories. So if you want to get something out there, they'll always kind of do little articles for you. So really important to kind of keep in touch with them. Then awards. Some, could see it as a bit of a jolly and a bit of a black tie event, but actually the whole process of going through the awards selection and judging has real benefits for both sides. So as a buyer, For many years, I did the judging for the Gift of the Year award, and actually for me, it was one day where I could go, spend away from the office, and just see loads and loads of new product. And actually, that new product didn't have any bells and whistles around it. It didn't have anyone trying to sell it to me. But what was really key about that is if a product stood out in that context, it said to me that product would stand out in a shop. I was looking at it as a consumer or a customer would. When they don't have anything around it, they don't have a salesman talking to them, if a product stood out on that day, I knew there was probably something in it. And for that supplier, it was a great way of getting product in front of me. There are never enough hours in the day for a buyer to see everybody that wants to see them, for everyone to show them all their products. No end of time, people would just say to me, can I just have 30 minutes? Can I just give you a quick call? Sadly, our diaries were never available to do that. So something like putting your product forward for an award like Gift of the Year would be a really great way. They advertise who's doing the judging. If there's someone you really, really want to get your product in front of, there is probably no easier way than participating in something like that. And the Gift of the Year awards run by the Gift Association, again, membership of these associations can't be underrated in terms of the amount of mentoring, the amount of support those guys will give you. And generally, again, they're really well connected. So if you're struggling to find out who the right buyer is or who you need to speak to, quite often if you check in with the relevant gift association, they'll probably know the name you're looking for and kind of cut down that time of you trying to search for who it is you need to find. And at the end of the day, the awards, if you get lucky enough to go, are great events, and it all comes down to networking. So there'll be great places to meet lots of new people in similar positions, and really key to our new business is really talking about people collaborating more, and we don't have to compete with each other all the time. The more knowledge we share, the more we all learn, and actually as things have been pretty tough, kind of collaborating and all driving forward together is going to be really key. But as you'll see, there are tons of different resources out there, so definitely knowing your trade is a really good place to start, especially when new on a category. And then this one always makes me start. This is called the art of no. So a lot of the time, buyers do have to say no. There is, as you can tell from Spring Fair, so much product in the world. And quite often, there's nothing wrong with it. Retailers just don't have bendy walls. We all are restricted to SKU counts. We're all restricted to space, so we can't just keep putting more and more in. So these are some of examples of things that I've had said to me over the years that are very obviously, in some cases, wrong. So starting with the quite blunt, where we were quite often told that we were wrong and that the person concerned would like to email our director or our boss or our head of. And I think you can obviously see why that's wrong, but actually there's a real thing around you need to kind of make sure you're speaking to the person who makes decisions, because actually a lot of times we were told by our directors we should do this or we should do that. They're quite far removed from the everyday strategy, and it might just not have been something that was right for the area at the time or would work. And generally, if I'm honest, most buyers are not being very good at being told by other people what to do. So you really need to make sure you're speaking to the right person. And when you do, you don't alienate them, because if you go to their boss and complain about them, generally, most people's bosses do quite like the people that work for them, so it's not really going to get you very far. But that has happened on more than one occasion. So the one in the middle at the top is a bit more excusable. So quite often people would say to us, my products are already stocked in the toy department, so it would be easy for you to add them to yours too. In bigger retailers, that's really not as simple as it sounds. So each office is managing their own supply base, is managing their own SKU count, and will be quite often under restrictions around if they want a new supplier to that office, they have to get rid of one. So regardless of whether you work with someone else in the business, you need to be able to add them into a new area one at a time. And then quite often they won't just have the SKUs they can get rid of. So it's not a bad start to be already working with a retailer in a different area, but it's not kind of the secret weapon to get you in the door of the office you want to. So just bear in mind, understanding how a retailer works in terms of supplier introductions and how they manage their SKUs is really key, because it's not the simple solution that quite often people think it is. And then across the top, I'm stopped in Tesco, Sainsbury's and Asda, you're missing out. So actually, as a John Lewis buyer, that really wasn't what you wanted to hear. So thinking about that messaging. So actually, if you were already in Tesco, Sainsbury's and Asda, as a John Lewis buyer, you're thinking, oh gosh, that probably means promotions, that probably means matching prices, that probably means lots of people have already seen it. So that might be the right thing to say to one of the other supermarkets if you were pitching to them, but really understanding and knowing your audience, that would be the thing that when you were reading through an email about a new product that would make you think, actually this one's probably not for me. And then across the bottom, my products are perfect for John Lewis. All my friends and family say so. So sadly, our friends and family are not always that honest and probably not always that impartial. So of course they're going to say, your products would be great. They're going to be backing you all the way, but really, really thinking about whether your products are perfect for the retailer you're approaching is really key. And ties into the next one around quite often we get told our products are really unique, you have nothing like it in your range. Quite often that person hasn't actually gone and looked at the range, and quite often there would be something quite similar. So really kind of getting under the skin of who you're pitching to and being really hard on yourself. It's hard when it's your product, it's your baby, but you kind of need to be really sure that if you're going to make statements like this, that you have got a real USP to your product and you can really back and justify that. And the last one is, I emailed you last week and I'm still waiting for a reply. Sadly, most buyers' inboxes are generally quite full. And actually, if you've not had a reply, that's probably just something you're going to have to live with and going to need to park for a while. Because the biggest thing for me around the art of the no is, if you get a no or no response, you need to walk away for a while. So there is nothing worse than when you say to no to someone, they email you again the next week with a bit more around why you should do it and can you tell them more feedback, and then they're back again the next week. And actually they do that so much, your human nature is to start to ignore that email when it pops up from that person. And at some point, I'm sure that person might have the best product going, but by that point you've annoyed the buyer so much they don't even open your email to look at the picture. So really what you need to think about is, if they've said no and maybe you've got some feedback, sometimes you won't get feedback because actually it may simply be there's nothing particularly wrong with the product, they've just not got the space for it, or it's not the right time. Is to really think about when you reapproach. So at least leaving it probably at least 3 to 6 months. Trying to reapproach when you've got something new to say, so maybe you've added products to the range, you've maybe tweaked something, and ideally understanding what sort of assortment review cycle that buyer's working to. So do they review for spring, summer and autumn, winter? What time of year do they do that? Because you could actually be rocking up the week after they've just signed everything off. And in that case, unless it's a truly exceptional product that they can't live without, they'll probably struggle to progress anything with you for the best part of 6 months. So most categories, and there are exceptions, they do all work slightly differently. If buyers are reviewing for autumn, winter, that would probably be coming to a close around now, so they would have been doing that probably through December and January. And then if they're signing off for spring, summer, that would probably have been done through sort of June, July time. But hopefully if you've got the right contact, they can give you an idea around when they're doing that, and therefore when's the ideal time to approach them. And then lastly, kind of as a bit of fun, retail is not saving lives, but probably the past couple of years has probably felt a bit like we were trying to do that to a certain extent. So we've had COVID, we've had containers getting stuck, and it's generally quite mind-blowing. But I think what's great about the industry and great from a buying and merchandising perspective is the rise, mainly on Instagram, of accounts that are just taking a really light-hearted view of what we do. So there are now a plethora of memes around kind of things we get really het up about, and actually kind of can really stress people out. We always talk about the Sunday night dreads. So for a retailer, Monday mornings are really important. You'll get all your trading week figures, and you can really spend a lot of your life not sleeping very well on a Sunday night, thinking about what you were going into on a Monday morning. But actually, communities like this are now kind of saying to people, look, we're all in the same boat. We need to calm down about this a bit, but actually are really great as well from a supplier perspective. So there is Life of a Buyer and Life of a Merchandiser, which are two of the really well-followed accounts. The amount of information around what's going on in retailers you'll find on those accounts is probably quite staggering. But they're quite light-hearted. They discuss things around, they were talking last week about travel budgets and people being, asked to share rooms and things like that. But as a supplier into that retailer, thinking about, well, obviously people aren't really keen on sharing rooms. So actually, if I want them to come and see me, maybe I can help with their travel budget, or, maybe we can put them up in some accommodation. Just thinking about kind of what are the guys on there talking about, and therefore how can I use that to my advantage? Because there are some very funny things that go on behind the scenes in buying and merchandising that you would discover on an account like this. But actually thinking about how you can best use them is a really kind of powerful tool now. And the guys running these are also quite open to kind of helping people who are looking for new suppliers. So there'll quite often be people saying, I need to find a new wool supplier in a certain area, or I need to find someone who makes this. So if you're keeping an eye on that, it could actually be your moment to get in front of a buyer. But as I say, sometimes it really does feel quite stressful, but I think we're definitely now in a stage where everyone's thinking much more about people's well-being and the balance between kind of working 24 hours a day when actually all it is about selling stuff. Kind of taking that moment to be a bit real about what we do is really important. So I probably whizzed through those points as I do, but I didn't want to be stood here kind of saying things that were common sense, because quite often a lot of it is, but they feel to me like a few key points around pointing in the right direction if you wanted to move into working within buying and merchandising, and more importantly, from an outside perspective, a supplier kind of trying to get into that. Obviously, if anyone has any more kind of thoughts or wants to take something offline with us, feel free to do, and we'll be around for a bit after we've done the chat.
Thank you very much, Sara.
Thank you.
Thank you.